You're now listening to All Hog Sports, covering all Arkansas Razorback sports, such as football, basketball, baseball, and much more. Now, here's your host for today's show, Sam Stimson.
Your Arkansas Razorbacks face their first road test of the season. They head to at number 23 Mississippi State on Saturday, October 8th at 11 a.m. on SEC Network. Now, I did not get a recap out for the Alabama game, and apologies for that one. I've been under the weather, and I got a little bit of a nasally voice here for this episode, so it's a little bit different now, but it should be fine by the recap next week. Couldn't get the Bama game out. I lost my voice from the game and really couldn't speak, but we're getting this one out now. So starting it off with the Arkansas offense. Now, KJ Jefferson did suffer an injury Saturday against Alabama. Head coach Sam Pittman said he hit his head. In his direct quotes, he said, quote, wait and see, and then also said, quote, mild symptoms. Another reporter asked if he was in the concussion protocol, and Sam Pittman said, quote, I didn't say that. This is not unreasonable for college football programs, and it's not unreasonable for a head coach to give very unclear answers based on injuries, because college football, they don't do the daily reporting like the NFL does, and Arkansas even lets some reporters go to some portions of practice, but they're not letting them report on KJ Jefferson's status this week, so it is truly a wait-and-see decision. So I'm going to talk about Arkansas's options if KJ is out, but if KJ plays, we know all about him. 66% completion rate on the year, 1,096 passing yards with 9 touchdowns. I think KJ truly has a great long ball, and we really haven't seen that year, but he's been having a pretty good season in the passing game without that. Arkansas's passing game overall lacks a little bit, but KJ has performed well, if that makes sense. And I think a lot of that is wide receiver separation and missing a true number one guy like Treylon Burks. There's a lot of talent with Landers, KJ Jackson, Warren Thompson, Hazelwood. There's a lot of talent there, but none of them stick out as like the number one guy that when Arkansas needs to move the chains on second, third down, that they're just going to throw the ball to, and they're going to get that completion, get us over the line. Arkansas doesn't have that at receiver yet. And the thing is, when you're playing with a beat-up secondary and a team that gives up a lot of points like Arkansas does on defense, you're going to be trailing a lot. And when you trail more, you're going to have to pass the ball more. Arkansas loves to run the ball, and if they can control the game, control the tempo, and everything, they're just going to run the ball 70% of plays. We saw it against South Carolina. We saw it against Cincinnati. And those were arguably Arkansas's 2 best games of the season. And when they didn't do that, they had to force their hand in the passing game, where this team is more designed for the run based on the offensive line and the receivers and everything. Arkansas has also done a tremendous job with KJ Jefferson on quarterback draws, things like that. 326 rushing yards on the season. If KJ plays, you kind of have that expectation of what he brings to the table and so forth for this offense. But if he doesn't play, Arkansas has 2 options, Cade Fortin or Malik Hornsby. Now, on the Arkansas depth chart, Fortin just jumped Malik Hornsby, and then against Alabama, Cade Fortin came into the game. I would say Fortin's the better passer. Malik is the better runner. Fortin also has a little bit of game experience, having played at North Carolina and South Florida. Now, against Alabama, Fortin was 4 out of 10 with 35 yards. He had a 16-yard completion. We did see him throw the ball down the field a little bit on some quick routes. Arkansas ultimately had Fortin in based off of practice and everything, but also the game scenario, which I was talking about earlier, fits better up for a better passer when you're trailing into the game, and Fortin gives that opportunity for the Hogs. Throughout fall camp, he was reported to be second in accuracy behind KJ Jefferson. He spent his 2018 season at the University of North Carolina and spent the 2020-2021 season playing at the University of South Florida. 2019 season was a redshirt for him. All-time in the NCAA, 25 out of 131, 49.6% completion percentage, 4.9 average yards per attempt, 1 touchdown and 3 interceptions. Really not that good numbers there. But, we really haven't seen him that much at Arkansas. I think he's probably better than that 49% completion percentage, but Definitely a step down from where KJ would be. Now, Malik Hornsby has gotten some snaps at wide receiver, but ever since the A&M game, we really haven't seen much, and I think that is over. I don't think Arkansas is going to be trying Malik anymore at wide receiver, especially given the health of KJ Jefferson. Arkansas has 2 scholarship quarterbacks, KJ Jefferson and Malik Hornsby. Cade Fortin is actually a walk-on transfer from South Florida. Now, there was some worry about Malik and him maybe entering the portal midseason. All of it just came out to speculation. Malik put on Twitter that he's a Razorback. In Dallas in 2021, Malik Hornsby did come in for an injured KJ Jefferson and led, I know, at least one drive, had a completion to Burks, but really just was more involved within the running game and a lot of quarterback design draws and so forth. Expect to see a lot of those if Malik does play here. In the passing game, 5 out of 12 for his 2021 season. That's all he's thrown in the league. 3.8 average yards per attempt. And he's had no starts compared to Fortin, who has had some starts. And I do believe that Cade Fortin will get the start if KJ Jefferson is not able to go. But regardless of who it is, we just got to rally behind him, man, and have the offense play their best game, running back. There's more than just the quarterback on the field with Arkansas being a heavy run team. It's not a hold-dependent situation. If KJ's out, Arkansas can't score 28-plus points. I think it's also very aligned with the defense and how the secondary can perform against the air raid offense at Mississippi State. Also going for this, the offensive line dealing with the crowd noise will be very, important, dealing with the cowbells, things like that. In the Arkansas receiving game, Hazelwood, Jackson, and then Warren Thompson may still be out this week. He was out against Alabama. Third receiver, Matt Landers, and then Trey Knox. All of those guys in the passing game just get a little more separation, can make things a lot easier for, whoever ends up starting at quarterback for the Arkansas Razorbacks. Now, the offensive line for Arkansas just continue to do their thing. Pass protection in this game will be a lot easier than it was against Alabama when you're not dealing with Will Anderson, Jalen Moody, a number of different guys who come off the edge. Very powerful. Arkansas's offense is averaging 32 points per game. They scored 26 points against a great defense in Alabama. And Arkansas's true identity on offense has been in the rushing game. 232.4 rushing yards per game. Rocket Sanders leading the pack with 609 rushing yards, 5.8 average yards per attempt. KJ has 81 attempts for 312 on the ground. AJ Green, 28 attempts for 117. And Rashad Dominion, the freshman, also been involved in that. And my main question when previewing the Arkansas offense versus the Mississippi State defense that I'm about to get into is how can Arkansas stay true to its identity if they don't have the lead? And the easiest solution to this is really just take the lead and establish dominance, but also have a passing game that's operational too. If Arkansas can stay two-dimensional on offense, that'll be very beneficial. And then also control the game, control the tempo. And when I'm talking about that, I'm talking a lot about the games against South Carolina and Cincinnati, where we saw Arkansas get to a lead, didn't mess around, and held the lead for the entire game. Against Missouri State, had to launch a comeback, and it was through the passing game. In the Texas A&M game, Arkansas had a 14-0 lead, and then, a whole number of different things happened. And they put themselves at a deficit, had to try to come back, and didn't at the field goal bouncing off the post. And then Alabama goes up 28-0. Hard to come back from that. Now for Mississippi State's defensive coordinator Zach Arnett throws a number of different looks. His unit goes out there and forces a lot of turnovers. They're second in the SEC in turnovers with 10, and then 22nd nationally. Big mark that stands out to me with 10 takeaways this year, 4 of them against Texas A&M. And Arkansas did not force a single turnover against Texas A&M for note. And Arkansas has struggled with fumbling and holding on to the football. KJ's one interception this year was off a tipped pass, so I really wouldn't count that too much. But for a team that struggles with fumbling and a team that hits hard and likes to poke the ball loose. Could definitely see a mismatch opportunity there. Arkansas has to continue to promote the ball security to their running backs. Mississippi State has allowed 118 rushing yards per game. Really, where teams run the ball well against Mississippi State is in the explosive rushing game. Mississippi State's third down defense is actually pretty well, and teams have been a lot more successful moving the chains on earlier downs. Mississippi State rolls with 3 down linemen most of the time, and this unit is very experienced. 5 out of the 6 guys in the 2 deep are either seniors or graduate transfers. Defensive end Jordan Davis has 12 total tackles for the Mississippi State Bulldogs. Nose tackle Cameron Young has 12 total tackles on the season. Defensive tackle Jaden Crumedy. Defensive tackle Nathan Pickering has 8 total tackles with 2 sacks. Defensive end Randy Charlton has 2 sacks on the season. This defensive line's a little bit better in pass protection. Zach Arnett's defensive scheming is very reliant on linebackers, and again, very experienced team. Mississippi State, as a team, returns 16 total starters. Very high mark there. Their linebackers, they do it all, edge rushing, pass coverage. One of the guys, middle linebacker Nathan Watson, redshirt senior. He's got a team-high 3 sacks. He does come off the edge in a defense amount of schemes. They do some 3-down linemen, bring up the linebacker, kind of like Arkansas does with Drew Sanders. Tyrus Wheat, graduate transfer, playing at linebacker. He's already recovered 2 fumbles on the season. And their best linebacker is Jet Johnson. This guy's all over the field making plays, and his athleticism really helps him. He attacks guys at really strong angles. Very talented linebacker. 46 total tackles in the season, 25 solo tackles, and 1 pass deflection. This is going to be a guy that Arkansas avoids, throwing to his side of the field because he's going to make a lot of good stops. The secondary for Mississippi State is led by cornerback Emmanuel Forbes. He's been their best cornerback this season and the last few ones. Was a stud freshman in 2020. Was on the all-freshman team. He's got 3 interceptions on the season, which is tied for the highest in the SEC. Second in pass deflections with 7. He had a pick 6 against Texas A&M. As of now, he's projected as a day 2 NFL pick. Expect him to be lined up a lot on Jaden Hazelwood, especially in man coverage. Camryon Richardson is a junior solid corner as well. It's been a very common trend for Mississippi State's position groups to be led by seniors, and this has not changed for the secondary. Jackie Matthews, 19 total tackles on the season. Colin Duncan, 10 total tackles on the season. And Jalen Green. Mississippi State runs a decent amount of zone coverage for the safeties, cover 1, cover 2. If Arkansas can get some good pressure in the running game, they may start to load the box, bring the safeties up. Main thing that I think really stands out is the takeaways, though. I mean, they do force a lot of fumbles, interceptions. Arkansas cannot be giving up, more takeaways and then put their defense on the field. And a defense that secondary hasn't looked too hot facing the air raid is just it's not a great, combination of those two sorts. Now, Mississippi State's offense under Mike Leach has been the air raid. Everyone knows about it. You've been running it for years now. Running it, captain of the ship, Will Rogers, the quarterback. 67.5% of all play calls have been throws. Arkansas has countered the air raid in previous years using a rush 3, drop 8 strategy, but missing a couple guys in the secondary due to injuries. Some of your linebackers aren't that well in pass coverage like Grant Morgan was. So it'll be interesting to see what Arkansas does. But I think that's what you roll with and then make adjustments. Rodgers has completed 73.1% of his pass attempts on the season, 1,715 yards already through only 5 games. He's got 19 touchdowns for 3 interceptions, and he's taken 8 sacks. He has minus 60 rushing yards with those sacks. And what Will Rogers said in an interview I think is very important is, quote, "It's not just a one-man show." Rogers has led this air raid fantastically for Mississippi State, and he's one of the underrated quarterbacks in the SEC, in my opinion. But Mississippi State has 4 receivers with 20 catches or more, and the only team that has 2 receivers with 20 or catches more is Georgia. No team has 3. That just shows you how much Mississippi State, and they're going to throw the ball a ton, especially against a wounded Arkansas secondary missing a number of different guys that I'll get into later. The leading wide receiver for the Bulldogs is wide receiver Rara Thomas. Thomas has 20 catches on the season for an impressive 359 yards, 3 touchdowns with an 18.0 average yards per catch. Downfield threat, 6'2 sophomore, definitely a guy to watch out for. And Arkansas doesn't want to be taking him in man coverage without safety help. Another wide receiver, Caleb Ducking, 24 catches for 272 yards, 6 touchdowns. He's been a huge threat within the red zone. Wide receiver Rufus Harvey has 24 catches for 229 yards. Another wide receiver, Griffin, for them, 19 catches for 206 yards. One off that 20 mark. And then the last guy with 20 catches or more is running back Dylan Johnson. Been the lead back so far for the Bulldogs. He's got 25 catches for 110 yards. Not really designed screens as much as it's just been dump-offs, him running routes, and so forth. Rogers really does spread the ball around a lot. And as you know, with that air raid offense, Mississippi State goes with 4 wide receivers at most times. And they're really reliant on a good offensive line because when you're missing tight ends, you have to, have 5 guys up front that can do your blocking. And they've done that so far. Only 8 sacks allowed in those 5 games. 4 out of 5 of the guys on the team are either seniors or graduate transfers, returning starters as well. Like I stressed, especially in the offensive line, experience means so much in the SEC, and with them having that experience in the offensive line gives them a huge advantage up front. Rushing has actually been one of the highest for Mike Leach since 2016. The team is averaging 93.4 yards per game on the ground. Seems like a low number, but for Leach, that is actually pretty high. Dylan Johnson has 50 attempts for 302 yards on the season, 11th in the SEC in rushing yards. He's got 1 touchdown with a 6.0 average yards per carry. Jaquavius Marks has 36 attempts for 5.4 averages. He's listed as the running back 1 and splits a backfield with Johnson. He's got 193 yards and been used a lot in the red zone. He's got 4 touchdowns. Mississippi State, like I said, running the ball 32.5% of the times was pretty high for Mike Leach, and that is due to them having 2 good running backs. Again, though, expect Will Rogers to throw at least 40, 50 times. Mississippi State's offense moves the chains across the field very well, and Arkansas secondary is going to have to be on their best to prevent that. Now, the Arkansas defense has allowed a high mark of 30.6 points per game and 432.4 average yards per game. 284 of those have been through the air, and 143 have been on the ground. That number on the ground went up a lot against Alabama. Jahmyr Gibbs ran it a lot. Arkansas has not been good at getting 3 and outs, and moving the chains has been really easy for teams that they've faced on first, second, third down. Lots of big, explosive plays, obviously keeps the drive moving. Now, the defensive line for Arkansas, the pass rush has been very incredible. And when you're relying on a 3-2-6 coverage where you're dropping 2 linebackers, and you may pull Drew Sanders up a lot, given his talent level. But your defensive line has to be really strong, and you have to get to the quarterback. The last 2 years, Arkansas' defensive line was pretty good against the air raid, especially in 2020, very notably was. Some guys have gone to the NFL and so forth. The last 2 nose tackles, 2020, 2021, both faced off against this team, went to the NFL, and we saw how huge those guys were in this game. Defensive end, Zach Williams, 3 sacks. Defensive end, Jordan Dominic, 5 sacks, tied for second, highest mark in the SEC. Landon Jackson, defensive edge rusher, 2.5 sacks. Jashad Stewart, the other edge rusher, is still injured. Status is unclear, but if he's not able to play, I think the other guys can step up. Defensive linemen, Eric Gregory, Terry Hampton, Cam Ball, and Isaiah Nichols. Like I said, Arkansas has gotten to the point that we have 7 to 8 reliable defensive linemen, and this does not change against this Mississippi State team. It's very clear what they have to do in the passing game, get pressure, but in the rushing game, the defensive line has to shed blocks and get off linemen and wrap up well. Something that John Ridgeway did a lot last season is what I'm talking about there, getting off the offensive lineman, wrapping up and stopping the run. And it's very key, and we didn't really see it too much against guys like Jahmyr Gibbs, but Arkansas is not going to be playing guys clocking, I believe, 23 miles an hour. Gibbs got up to against Arkansas. We won't be facing that every week. We won't be facing a team full of 4 and 5 stars. Linebacker Drew Sanders, though, he's been fantastic. Everyone knows about him. Named the Butkus Award winner of the month of September. Very well deserved, and congratulations to him. Leading the SEC in sacks with 6.5 sacks. Him and the defensive line, a couple guys in the secondary have combined to have the second most sacks in the nation. He's got 43 total tackles and 22 solo tackles. He's a beast, really all over the field, making tackles, especially getting pressure to the quarterback. He seems to find the right angles as well to wrap him up. He's been really successful in that this season. He really doesn't play too much in pass coverage, which I think will be interesting to see how Arkansas utilizes him if they do want to drop linebackers. Bumper Pool, last 2 seasons, he did play against the air raid, and I really like him in this matchup because he's kind of familiar with that. Something Bumper, though, wrapping up. Guys, he's got 46 total tackles, 20 solo tackles. High marks there, but there's been some times in the season where he's missed some tackles. And I think it's all about the angles for Bumper. He's obviously not the most athletic man on the field, but when he attacks at good angles, Bumper's able to wrap up and get really good tackles. So, him using that, Bumper's football IQ is off the charts, one of the smartest guys on the field. And this also does apply to safeties. It applies to the whole team missing tackles. And Arkansas has actually done really good in comparative to the last few weeks and not missing as many tackles. I know it looked bad against Alabama, but in comparison to the A&M and Missouri game, the numbers have actually decreased on an exponential chart. So things have gone a lot better there. Bumper's been wrapping up guys better. Constant improvement. You love to see that. And then the secondary. We talk about this every week, but the secondary kind of is what it is. Missing a lot of guys due to injury, really banged up. It hurts that the secondary's in this position, but it was very unpredictable. I mean, if you would have told me before the season Miles Slusher would have 2 injuries by week 4, Jalen Catalon would be out, Ladarius Bishop would be out, I wouldn't think it would have been this bad, but, still the injuries causing a lot of that, and those two things do correspond and make sense. Arkansas's best corner this season has been Dwight McLaughlin. He had a really good one-handed interception against Bama. He's been the best player in man as well. Not really having a safety up top at all times and been able to cover the weak side of the field. Quarterback Malik Chavis has been getting more snaps over Hudson Clark. Nickelback Miles Slusher is definitely the best athlete, and we saw against Alabama that he was clearly not at his best ability, and that is due to a calf injury that Sam Pittman also said is a wait and see. Sam Pittman did say that Slusher was more beat up than Thompson, and Thompson did not play against Alabama this weekend, so something to note there. But it was very clearly watching Slusher that he was playing with an injury that was either sustained during practice or the A&M game, because already on that first play, he was put into man coverage and ended up getting beat pretty bad, and he did not, finish off accelerating and running to the guy. And that wasn't, a result of effort. It was a result of injury, and he really didn't play too much as the game went further. So Latavius Brini getting thrown in at nickelback, his safety position as well, playing a little bit of both, but I think you'll see him more at nickelback as he played that at Georgia. Also, Simeon Blair, safety. Expect to see him. And then also Hudson Clark at corner, Kari Johnson. Both of those guys have been trained to play cornerback or safety, as Arkansas has really prioritized being able to get their best 6 guys on the field. So with Slusher's injury, that's very important. Overall, the Arkansas defense, though, against the air raid, the secondary has to hold up. We saw against Bama, there were some cover 0s, cover 1s being called, and I don't expect that this week. I mean, Odom has game planned really well for the air raid the last 2 years, and if he can put together a plan this year, that'll be saying a lot just given the health of the secondary. But the defensive line up front can definitely give a big boost to the secondary. Now, the special teams for Mississippi State, their kicker, Ben Raybank, 16 out of 17 extra points on the year, 4 out of 5 field goals. He's been a transfer for them. If you remember last season, Mississippi State's kickers struggled against Arkansas. They had 2 kickers who missed extra points, kicks, a number of different things. 2 different punters for Mississippi State, averaging 39.7 yards per punt and a 57% touchback percentage. Not really sure which one we'll see. Teams averaging 26.3 on 9 kickoff returns and 9.3 yards on 10 punt returns. Looking at Arkansas special teams real quick, Cam Little's 20 out of 20 on extra points, 4 out of 6 on field goals made. Really haven't asked for 2 hard field goals. Hasn't made a kick outside of that 40-plus range, though. Max Fletcher averaging 33 yards per punt on 26 punts. 86% of them have gone through the end zone for a touchback. However, did have some punts against Alabama where the coverage was blown up, and Arkansas was punting to Kool-Aid McKinstry. Arkansas will not have to deal with Kool-Aid this weekend. He's one of the best return men in the nation. Alabama always has good athletes that they use for return men. Kool-Aid meeting the standard there. He was fantastic. And Arkansas punting to him a couple times was very questionable. And then Arkansas, Bryce Stevens on punt return, AJ Green on kick return. Just expect touchbacks for those 2 guys. Now, some quick notes here. All-time, Arkansas leads the series, 18 wins to 13 losses and 1 tie for the Razorbacks. Arkansas on a 2-game winning streak since they've hired Sam Pittman. Hogs won at Starkville 2 years ago, got the first win of the Sam Pittman era. They were double-digit underdogs and ended up getting a really nice win doing that rush 3 drop 8 strategy. The line right now stands at Mississippi State minus 8.5. Lots of movement with the injuries and so forth, but that is what it is as of Tuesday afternoon. The over-under sitting at 61.5. Arkansas, the underdog here on the road, not really too shocked by that one, given Mississippi State's ranked at number 23, but that number has definitely been increased due to injury speculation, so forth.
It's time for Sam's prediction. Sam's
prediction has Mississippi State winning 35-27. KJ Jefferson's health is up in the air, but regardless of that, I just don't have a good feeling whether KJ gets the start or not. Arkansas has been a run-first team, and it makes sense given the strength of the program and the offensive line. But when you're trailing, Arkansas is going to have to throw the ball a lot. And I have a bad feeling that Arkansas is going to be trailing a lot because of the secondary against the air raid. What Arkansas can do to win, though, on defense, they have to limit explosive plays, both of those being runs, with Leach going with runs at a usually higher rate than he normally does, and then also the passing game. Arkansas has to limit explosive plays, and then also force stops, force turnovers, hand the ball back onto the offense, and give them opportunities to score, whether KJ, Fortin, whoever's out there. I think this game is very reliant on the defense, and many games will be this season, given the status of the injuries. Arkansas getting KJ Jefferson for this game would obviously be huge, and I think it could change my prediction, but I just don't have a great feeling with the defense and all of that. But KJ Jefferson or not, Arkansas's offense has to establish a two-dimensional system. The running game doesn't concern me. I think they'll be able to get that going on the ground with Rocket and DJ, AJ Green, Dominion, all of those guys on the ground. But then the passing game, short to middle passes, are so important to get those involved. And the Hogs may be able to pull off the upset in Starkville. Now, I will have a recap of this game out on Monday, so make sure to check it then. Hogs going on the road for the first time will be a really important game to see how this team responds after 2 losses, especially on the road. But signing off for now, Woo Pig Sooie.
That's all for today's episode of All Hog Sports with Sam Stimson. Make sure to stay tuned for the next episode covering all Arkansas Razorback sports. If you enjoyed today's episode, please subscribe and leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on social media too. On Twitter and Instagram at All Hog Sports Pod. Like on Facebook at All Hog Sports and Arkansas Razorbacks Podcast. And on YouTube at that same name. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode. Go Hogs!